We're rolling.
We're rolling.
So,
Optimal chair
this
choice.
one's better.
Yeah,
This one's better.
much better.
So I think we'll sit like this, and we'll talk to each other, but be open
Yeah.
to facing the camera as well. So we'll just jam.
Cool.
And we'll see what
Freestyle.
see what magic we can create.
Yeah, sounds good.
So Matt, before we get started, I've called this series Chats with Snacks
Love it.
because
Where are
we're
the
chatting
snacks?
and
Oh,
we're
the
snacking.
snacks.
So
Beautiful.
feel free to just tip it upside down on the table and
Snacks galore as promised.
see what these snacks.
Yeah, nice.
And I've also got you some coconut waters, either lychee or pineapple. So
Beautiful.
feel free to
Hit up a pineapple, I
crack
think.
those open along the way.
Beautiful, as advertised.
But thank you for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having me.
So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, which is probably most of our audience, because
Yes.
you seem to do your work quietly in the shadows and
That's
just
me.
make a bunch of cool shit on the side. Who are you? What do you do? And why should people listen to you?
Oh, well, I don't know about that
No
last
pressure.
part. So my name is Matt. I'm the creative lead at Megaphone. I've been here for about 3.5 months so far, so still feel relatively fresh. Before that, I was working at a content production agency at a bigger media agency. So I've kind of gone from digital agencies to traditional above-the-line agencies and then come full circle back where I started. So I think over that time, it's been quite interesting to see how different agencies and businesses at different levels perform. And while there's a lot of differences, there's also a lot of similarities as well. I think with creativity especially, like a good creative idea at its heart should be really, really simple. And it doesn't matter if you're a large multinational company or a small startup, that sort of simple idea can be scaled for any business really. So I think I've taken a lot of those learnings from working with startups, working with global and national brands, and I've kind of found that sweet spot, I think, of where brands should be playing in the space and being more efficient and agile and investing in the right channels, I think, as well, knowing that a lot of larger companies invest a lot in more expensive channels and it's not the most efficient use of their budgets.
Often the bigger marketing budgets you have, the less care you put into it. You
Yeah.
just throw money around for the sake of it. So it sounds to me, Matt, that you're a creative at heart, but you have that logical side of your brain that understands consumer psychology and marketing and what it takes to create content that actually resonates with the viewer. Do you think
Definitely.
that's pretty on point?
Yeah, I often said that if I went back and restarted my career, I'd probably get into psychology. I've always enjoyed analysing people and the way they sort of react to things. So I think that's always been a big part of my role in terms of unpacking the data, understanding the insights behind an idea and why did an idea work or why did it not work and what can we learn from that. I feel like a lot of creatives, they kind of work in a bit of a silo, and when something doesn't work, they'll just try again from scratch and not really interrogate perhaps the root cause of why something didn't really hit the mark. So I think something that digital marketing agencies do a lot better than larger agencies is really analyze the data, split test and learn instead of starting from scratch each time.
Okay, so let's walk us through the process that you would go through to create ads and content for brands that is designed to actually convert. So not necessarily the really aesthetic kind of content that builds brands and builds awareness, but when you're thinking about creating, whether it be videos or statics or designs that go across multiple formats, email marketing, for example, how can you start with psychology and end with conversion? What's your process?
So I feel like there's two ways where I go about coming up with an idea. Like it'll either be this chicken and egg scenario where it's either I come up with a really robust strategy where I've gone into the data behind the audience, the channel, the placement, the industry, and looked for some connecting pieces that really, where's that white space to play? Or I just come up with a wild idea that just sort of in your gut, you know is going to work because it's never been done before or it just makes so much sense. And then you develop the strategy to back the idea. So it really is that chicken and the egg scenario of which one comes first. So I think either way, I usually start with a bit of a white canvas brainstorming session. And I use a bit of a mental exercise where it's basically sell me this item in, it's like Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this item in like 10 seconds or less. And just come up with the wildest, most insane ideas you can to kind of clear out the, the brain a little bit, and then from that refine it, and then start thinking more logically and strategically about what ideas make sense for the client based on the brief, based on the data. And then from the end of the session, hopefully have a few territories to actually go away and explore from a data side of things. So if a client has existing audience data that we can leverage and learn from, or if it's a startup, it's more interrogating the ads that are currently running to understand what's driving clicks, what's driving return on investment, where are the drop-off points, and perhaps why. And from that, you can start to get a bit of a picture in terms of the type of content that's resonating, whether it's showing a human face, using a certain color, more of a story, narrative-driven piece as opposed to a promotional piece, sharing the emotional reason behind the business, like a founder story, for example. And from that point, then testing a lot of different angles to understand what's resonating with this particular audience. I do believe that there's no one size fits all. So what works really well for one brand might not for another. So it is a bit of a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and when you're thinking about the data and allowing that to dictate your creative testing, are there certain metrics that you focus on?
I think it depends on what the ultimate objective is. If it is more of a conversion-led piece, then it's probably going to be more.
Let's say it's sales.
Yeah, so it's going to be looking at more of the click-through rate, the conversion. Like, are we getting traffic to the website, and then at that point, are they dropping off, or are they abandoning cart? Are they completing purchase? And then unpacking, is that an issue with the ad experience, or was it an issue with perhaps the web experience, and where are they dropping off? I think as creatives and as marketers, it's our role to then unpack that with the client as well and understand, is this an ad problem, or is this something that needs to be refined on their end to make sure it's a smoother transition from ad to marketplace to conversion. So really I'm looking at the ROAS, the click-through rate, the dwell time, and if it is a video that has a bit more of a longer runtime, then the engagement as well. Are they actually watching it to the end of the video and then clicking, or are they clicking immediately, in which case maybe the content wasn't as important, they were just hooked from the first couple of seconds. I think there's a lot you can learn from the point they've clicked off on a video, whether they've watched the whole thing or they've dropped off from the first couple of seconds.
Yeah. I have a bunch of questions for you around video and around email. I know that you do both of those areas plus many more. So which way do you want to take this?
Let's start with video.
Video. Yeah. Okay. So video, I want to start in terms of thinking of video ads.
Yep.
Do you use particular formulas? Are there foundations that you build each video on, or are you really starting from zero for each particular video?
I think definitely not zero. There's always like learnings you can take from like-minded clients or like-minded industries, but yeah, you definitely don't want a cookie cutter approach where it is rehashing the same old tired formulas, because people are already pretty ad fatigued as it is, and if they see something that feels stale or a bit try hard because it's jumping on a trend that's perhaps a few weeks too late, and then it's not going to have the same result. So it is about keeping your finger to the pulse in terms of what's trending at that given time, and then how can we leverage that into the creative. Some of it you can control if it's something cultural that's coming up that's kind of at a set time every year, whether it be a sporting event, public holidays, things like that, ways for you to naturally have a bit of commentary or relevance around something happening in the real world. Others can be a bit more ad hoc and random, as we see on TikTok, the random trends that might emerge, no one could predict, and it's about being on the platform, engaging with the content, using the reports that TikTok sends out, and jumping on concepts early. So actually leveraging a hook and then testing it and doing that before it's become too big, because often once a brand jumps on a trend, it's probably already on the downward slide and then doesn't have the same traction as you would if you were earlier.
Right. And that answer is very specific to TikTok.
Yeah.
But I know that plays a much larger role than just posting videos on TikTok. So can you speak to how that phase of content creation actually can be used across multiple areas through the brand marketing experience?
Yeah. I think when you film for TikTok, it's a very organic feeling content piece. It's very different to a TVC, a large-scale video production, which has a lot more of a highly polished feel and doesn't really work well on TikTok, because TikTok is meant to be rough and raw and lo-fi and feel like a regular person has filmed as opposed to a brand. And I think a lot of brands are learning that organic piece can be actually really valuable across other channels as well. So when they've filmed for TikTok, they'll actually reuse that content for EDMs or for web content across other social channels. I think they're learning that almost like that less is more kind of approach, and brands and people are responding better to brands who are a bit more rough and ready, a bit more authentic, and doesn't feel as faceless as some of those larger scale polished ads do. So it probably comes down to the channel as well and where they're going to be using it, but I think it does set the precedent that you can take a less is more approach and actually test things that you wouldn't ordinarily do in a video shoot.
And how do you know if that raw, authentic approach is right for one particular brand?
Yeah, I guess that's where TikTok is a good testing platform where you can run dark ads in the background and test different hooks, different angles, and before you do a hard launch on a platform where something's living permanently and perhaps you don't want to just test it immediately without having that result, you use social as a bit of a training grounds or proving grounds to see what content is resonating with your audience and your segments. And from there, you can see that the more organic feeling user content seems to really perform. Let's now test that on an EDM channel or another direct marketing channel, having UGC content embedded on a website, for example. And then from there, it can actually be integrated across other channels as well once you've sort of shown that there's a merit to including that kind of content.
Right. I might be oversimplifying here, but is it essentially you're using TikTok as in grounds of experimentation, and then depending on which video or which topic gets the most organic engagement, that then paves the way for your messaging on other platforms or your video recycling on other platforms?
Yeah, no, I think that's you hit the nail on the head there. Like with most social platforms, Meta included, the dark versus organic side of posting does give brands a lot more flexibility to kind of be a bit more wild and left of field. And knowing that you can test multiple different hooks and angles, some being completely batshit crazy out of the box, it might not perform as expected, but that's okay because it's not living on your homepage or your feed where someone might discover it and be like, what the hell am I seeing right now? But you can test it to smaller segments of your audience, and then from there, dismiss the ideas that just aren't working, or being confident enough or being brave enough to test a hook that hasn't been done before and actually hopefully see some results that differ from the traditional, safer advertising that they've been sticking to.
How many clients do you work with at the moment?
A fair few. I mean, there's about 20 or so for our TikTok department alone. Our design team works on almost all the clients at Megaphone. That's a couple of hundred right there, depending on the given day.
Okay, so you've got a large pool to choose from, which I hope means that this next answer will be pretty good. What have been some of the most batshit crazy ideas that you've tested out?
Well, I can literally use an example from today. So one of our clients, Epson, skincare beauty brand, we did this series for them where is it cake or is it real? Just like the American TV show you might have seen.
I haven't seen it, but yeah, explain.
So literally it'd be like a world-renowned cake dessert chef, I'm not sure what the terminology is there, would create a hyper-realistic cake of a mundane object. So it could be a can, a phone, a laptop, and then from a distance, judges have to determine if it's cake or is it literally that object.
Oh man, TV has gone downhill.
It's good. There was a show on Netflix I watched, and some of the cakes are so realistic. Like even as the viewer watching it, I'm like, I don't actually know what's cake. Anyway, that was the concept, but the joke is, or I guess the hook of the video is, it's a terrible looking cake. It looks nothing like the product. And it's being presented like in a semi-serious kind of documentary style where it's like, this is by popular demand, we're doing a cake, is it cake or is it real? People just can't tell. And then the big reveal is showing this shoddy, rough as ready cake that's meant to look like the product. And then using one of our content creators there would then go out and then try and determine which is the real one. So we did a sequel to that today, went around the office presenting one of the products alongside a cake version. The cake version looked like it was made by a 4-year-old intentionally, so it takes some skill to make it look fake. And then having the comic reactions of people in situ where they're actually reacting to it for the first time and looking at us and looking at the camera and like, is this a joke? I thought this was meant to look good. So like kind of leaning into like that intentionally bad, or like leaning into the fail mentality where it's kind of a little bit awkward, it's a bit cringe, it's a bit, it's intentionally a bad ad, but sometimes that anti-ad has a better result than trying too hard and trying to do a really polished performance.
And why do you think that is?
I think people are sick of seeing, the tired polished ads that we've been used to for decades now, and there's something, I think, that it's almost like YouTube sort of brought this out in us, like that obsession with fails and flops and wipeouts and things where people would go into those platforms to see people mess up and make mistakes and to laugh and have a break from reality, I suppose. So it's a bit of a shock to the system, something a bit more unexpected. It's kind of a laugh despite yourself type moment, as opposed to when you try to get a laugh with a joke and it feels overly forced and not natural and ultimately isn't as funny.
I think it's also very relatable as well, and that'll tap into the psychology, which I'll get you to speak on in a moment.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest way to stand out is to be able to build a connection with your viewer.
Yeah.
And often when you see these high polished videos shot on like 6K cameras like this one, although this video is the exception,
of course,
then you understand that like it's not really on the same level as you. But when you see ads that are shot on iPhones and they're using little handheld mics like this one, and they're just out in the street talking to like normal people doing their everyday stuff, then you can see yourself in that environment. You can see yourself using that product. And that kind of is what made UGC so popular. It was that relatability. And I see Matt wearing this shirt. I want to wear that shirt because we're mates. Exactly. So I think relatability is a massive point. But I do want to circle back to that psychology.
Sure.
So being a copywriter by trade and then using that knowledge across all of your other content creation and creative direction. What carries across from copywriting, which is one of the oldest forms of advertising, to the more modern video style creatives?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, at its core, copywriting is about talking in the tone of voice of your target audience. And like my very first job was writing copy for startups, doing SEO copywriting, and every day would be a dozen different clients, a dozen different industries, and we didn't have much time to quickly research and adapt and learn what this audience is, what they want, what are they after, and then to write copy that spoke to them personally and answered a problem. And a lot of times people don't know they might not know they have a problem, and they're just out there researching generally, and they need someone to tell them what their problem is. Other times people have a very clear idea of what their problem is, but they're highly selective with who they're going to choose to solve their problem. So the way you adapt your copy is dependent on what stage of that buyer journey is the person at, how much knowledge they have about your product. You don't want to talk down to them. You also don't want to alienate them by being too complicated and making them feel stupid. So it's a really fine line about knowing your audience, knowing the product, and then basically a good copy is bridging the gap between answering a client need or solving a problem and making money for a business. And it's a fine line because you have to have some sort of value exchange. For the time a user is spending reading your article or your blog, what are they getting out of that? Are you educating them? Are you teaching them? Are you providing some form of entertainment or story or emotional response that is going to justify them dedicating their precious time on your brand? I think that's what comes down to the compelling nature of copy, is understanding the psychological need of the audience, and then crafting, whether it's a micro copy, even a caption, something that elicits some kind of emotional response for them. And again, I think while it does come down to the sales funnel, I was listening to this interesting podcast called Burn the Sales Funnel.
Cool, I like it.
Like kill the sales funnel. And obviously that's quite shocking, like the sales funnel. As marketers, that's like our holy grail. Like we can't ever go against that. And this marketer was talking about this theory where a good creative, whether it's copy or a creative campaign, why can't it answer all stages of the funnel? Why does it have to be an awareness ad or a conversion ad? Why can't you give users a reason to establish a connection with the brand while providing them some sort of value in the form of a promotion or a sale or a discount that taps into that logical or rational part of their brain? And he had a case study where it was a brand that was able to, it was like a charity, and it was able to give small startup businesses like this starter pack, almost like for entrepreneurs trying to start their own business, but it had some financial side to it as well. So obviously it met the goal of earning revenue for the business, but it provided this really, really valuable resource to business startups that they wouldn't have gotten for that amount of money. And I do find that quite interesting, and something I try to think about with a creative idea that I come up with. Yes, it's building awareness for a brand and it's creating an emotional response, but how can it also drive to a really specific sales result, whether it is a click, a download, a subscription. It's a fine line, so it doesn't always work for every brand, but I think it's interesting to at least consider it, whether it's viable for you and your business.
And to add one more thing onto that, I think if you are able to craft really compelling copy, then that will encourage the reader to make the decision for themselves.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily telling them what to do. You're creating that feeling that motivates them to take the action because they've read about the benefits or the problems that'll be solved because of what you've written.
You've given them all the answers, and it's up for them to make the decision.
Do you think there are any, let's say, rules of thumb with copy that is, actually this will be fun, give me your top three.
Top three.
And then your bottom three things to absolutely avoid.
I literally had this like cheat sheet that I made for like my team in terms of like copy 101. So I'm trying to think of like the most compelling ones. I feel like keep it simple, stupid is something that I've had ingrained in me since like university, the KISS principle, because so many of my other rules kind of ladder back to that in terms of like knowing your target audience, talking to them in layman's terms, not trying to talk like you've swallowed a thesaurus, keeping it really simple and to the point. And that's something I had to untrain myself from. Like I'm a creative writer as well in my spare time. I was studying writing in high school and journalism in uni and writing very like flowery prose, and that just doesn't work for digital marketing or for advertising in general. So it's still being articulate and clever, but in a really simple, straightforward way, which I think is a fine line. So keep it simple is probably my number one rule in terms of culling fluff, culling any unnecessary words, active voice, meaning there's less words, and whereas passive voice is a bit more lengthy. And it's getting to the heart of the problem. So it's like that journalistic inverted pyramid theory where what's your hook? Don't bury the lead. Start with the most compelling piece of information, whether it's an EDM in your opening subject line, in the opening line of a blog, the first line of your social post. Like keep it simple and start with your best, most compelling hook.
Yep.
Second, touched on it before, but know your audience. I think if you're writing a piece of copy that either assumes more knowledge or less knowledge than they have, it's not going to hit the mark. It also might not be relevant for them if they're at a completely different stage of the buyer journey and you're trying to push a hard sales message when they're just beginning their research, then it's just going to go over their heads and they're going to be alienated. Yeah. And third, I think, just be human and have a human element to it, whether that is a bit of colloquialism, a bit of a metaphor, an analogy, something that shows that you're not just a robot pumping out copy, but you're actually a fellow human relating to a pain point, empathizing with a problem they might be having, presenting the business as a friend rather than just this faceless corporation which is trying to get money out of you. And sometimes that's using the first person. It's using very casual colloquial language that provides references or examples, but trying to make it a little bit less sharp and pointy and a bit more like a warm hug. Something that's more relatable and comfortable. Yeah,
finding that common ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to your point around robots writing articles, there are a lot of those right now, which I think makes genuinely good, thoughtful copywriting so much more impactful these days because it truly does stand out.
Yeah, I think AI gives you a good starting point as well, and then the human touch is to polish it and refine it from there.
There was a quote that came to mind regarding your keep it simple, stupid principle, which as a copywriter myself, I completely agree with. And I think we all go on this journey as writers where we start here and then we learn more about copywriting and we start to get more formal and more fluffy and use all our adjectives. And then when we get to this period, we realize actually, even though I know all these things, I got to use less. Yeah. So the more experienced you go, it's kind of like a bell curve. Yeah,
you have to prove yourself. I can write, but now I don't need to because we don't talk that way.
Yeah, and it was either Ben Franklin or Abraham Lincoln said, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And that one has just stuck with me because consolidate when you can, because we have such short attention spans these days as readers, as viewers. So get your point across quicker. As you said, don't bury the lead, and I think that can go really far. We're
all goldfishes at the end of the day. Goldfish with short memories.
Yeah. Now hit me with your must avoid, your top three.
Must avoid.
I guess your bottom three.
Yeah. In terms of tips that aren't as important, or just things that common pitfalls in copy?
If you want bad copy that doesn't convert, what should you do?
Okay. I feel like it's going to be, I'm trying to think of ones that aren't inverses of the ones that I've just told you already, so something different. Let's say, I feel like brands that, talk at you. No, this is going to be a different version of keep it simple. I feel like it just comes, I can't help it, do the inverse of what I was saying, words that like blocks of text. They talk at you like they're a robot. It's coming at you with like a very analytical, like it sounds like it's being read out of a textbook. Like this deck that I use where I have my one-on-one copywriting tips, I pulled out some examples where it was like a very lengthy block of text, and then I kind of had my interpretations of what it meant, and I said the same thing in like one line, if not less. And it was this huge wordy chunk. And I used to hate this when working as an SEO copywriter, having to go in and fix people's web pages because they were trying to hit a certain word count for SEO reasons, but the copy wasn't good. It was just fluff. It was jargon. And Google got smarter, started penalizing websites for that. So they were trying to refine their websites to say the same amount of words, but make it all really valuable. And words that, it's just talking around a topic. It's very vague. I love specificity, and I hate and vagueness, and very broad sweeping statements that could be open for interpretation. So I think it's like, get to the point, be simple and be truthful. I think brands that they have this like slimy snake oil salesman vibe when it starts to talk very loosely and vague, and it feels like a car salesman trying to talk big picture and not be specific in terms of what you're actually getting out of it. So I think it comes down to being authentic, or not being authentic in case if you want to write bad copy, and being disingenuous in terms of the misleading statements included in the copy.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That last one is don't say things for the sake, especially if we're talking about landing page copy, for example.
Yeah.
Don't create descriptions that will encourage sales that aren't actually 100% accurate, because you're going to feel the burn in terms of bad reviews and returns, and that can ruin your brand.
I have another one. This is a random one that I've inherited from my old uni teacher, but I hate exclamation points in sales copy. I just feel like it comes across. I was also taught this in creative writing. It's a show don't tell tactic. Like, you should be able to communicate someone shouting or being exclaiming with words as opposed to the symbols, the icons. So I've got a bit of a passion point for exclamation points in copy, and I feel like you should be able to show that enthusiasm through the words, the language, as opposed to relying on what comes across as a bit of a cheap salesman kind of tactic.
How do you feel about emojis?
I'm all for emojis.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why. I feel like it's because maybe exclamation points have been around for a while. And it screams to me like carpet business going out of sale, clearance ad, kind of like loud, big text in your face, crazy warehouse sales. Emojis to me just feels like the evolution of the keyboard for millennials and Gen Zs, where that's just another tool in our arsenal for breaking up copy and using it as punctuation.
Yeah, and that comes back to what we were saying before about the goldfish mentality.
Yeah.
Right? If you only have 2 seconds to get someone in, an emoji may be the best way to
Pretty
do that.
colours, breaks up the text.
Yeah, but I think it also comes down to your brand's tone of voice. For some brands, they want to appear a bit more polished, and maybe emojis aren't the way to go.
Definitely.
But if you're open to being a bit playful and trying it out, it could improve your conversion rate. You never know until you try.
And I mean, to that point though, yes, brands should have a tone of voice, but if you're playing on a channel where that is the native language, you kind of need to adapt or die. I feel like if you're coming on to if you're on LinkedIn, obviously there's a bit more of a crisp, polished tone of voice, but if you're on TikTok, you're on Meta, and you're still talking like it's a business web page or a LinkedIn page, I don't think the content's going to really resonate with the audience. You need to make sure it's aligned to the audience and the platform more than perhaps the style guide of that particular brand. What do you think on that?
I'm thinking if I've got a video to post across my organic social media channels, you've got 2 schools of thought. You've got efficiency, and then you've got platform specificity.
Yeah.
So where do you lie on this spectrum? Either we can take the same caption and the same video and post it on all the platforms, let's say Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, even Facebook page, if anyone still uses that. Or you could spend however long, 30 minutes, an hour, refining it to each platform and the specific tone of voice. Given that marketers, brand owners have stacked days, that's probably 30 minutes an hour they don't want to be spending tailoring this content that they've already written to be the same content, just slightly different for another platform. So where do you sit on that argument?
I mean, I would definitely be angling for option 2, taking the time, because you're investing a bit of time now to hopefully get the better result out of the platform. I feel like if you're going to do something half of the way, why you're even doing it in the first place. So in that case, if they don't have time, it's about working smarter, not harder, and leveraging like AI tools or content generation tools that help at least tweak the content enough for them to get the ball rolling and then polish as needed. Or it's about reducing the channels that you're advertising on. Like, do you need to be posting on every single social media channel? If not, choose your top hitters and really focus on doing them well. I'd rather have 3 channels that are performing well than doing 5 channels subpar.
Yeah.
What about yourself? Where do you sit on the spectrum?
I tend to agree with you, although I am obsessed with efficiency.
Yeah.
I just want to get it done, but it is a battle. It's because you are spending 80% of your time creating this video.
Yeah.
If you don't spend the last 20% refining the copy, you've almost wasted the 80% creating the video in the first place.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important to not consider it an afterthought, but actually keep it in mind at the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
Because then you may even recognize that this video I'm creating, if I change the hook or if I change the call to action, then it's more appropriate for LinkedIn compared to Instagram. So just taking 5 minutes to stop and reflect and understand your audience. And this isn't just like content, this is now everything marketing. But if you spend the 5 to 10 minutes, it feels like it's a waste of time. That actually is going to save you so much time in the long run and make your content more impactful.
It's a little time now for hopefully a lot less time later when you're reporting on your poor results on the platform.
Yes, exactly right.
I think that was interesting when TikTok first became big in Australia. I was working at the media agency at the time with the content arm, and a lot of the clients were just asking like, what's this TikTok? Like, how can I be working on the platform? And a lot of them were just wanting to rehash meta content and reshare on TikTok. And we were researching and finding that that was just not working. Like, while Meta very quickly launched their own Reels to compete with TikTok, it was a completely different audience for one and a different user experience. It was different features and tools. TikTok launched CapCut, their own side business where they were able to create templated content, filters and effects for users to use. And it was completely different to what Meta was doing. And I think a lot of brands were suffering by trying to find the efficiencies and just resharing content, a resized TVC on YouTube, Meta and TikTok, and then not understanding why that content wasn't performing because it feels out of place. It's clearly something that's been rehashed and it's like a square peg being forced into a circle hole.
Yeah, and it's a result of that efficiency mindset.
Yeah. So it's a fine line, but I definitely think it's worth the investment, worth the time. Otherwise, do less and focus on doing the platforms that you are on really well.
Yep, love that. All right, Matt. Well, I think it's getting dark outside and we want to go have some dinner soon.
Yes.
So let me hit you with a few short and sweet rapid fire questions to finish up. No pressure, but they better be good answers.
You've been saying that the whole time. There's so much pressure.
Okay. Firstly, what is your number one tip for copywriting?
I would say it's about backing it up with data and understanding the audience.
What is one suggestion of a hook that whoever watching this could implement on their video tomorrow that's worth testing?
This idea was so wild, it almost got me fired.
Ooh.
Controversial, provocative, and dangles the bait of a story.
I like it. Next question. What has been your favorite trend or TikTok meme during your time here at Megaphone, or even before that?
Probably my boss said this job doesn't require 2 people to do it. And then like 2 blokes doing a really mundane job around the office or the workforce just gets me every time.
Yeah, that's a great one. What do you think is a element of consumer psychology that most brands overlook when creating content?
Okay. I feel like it's the fact that they only want to market to people who have a problem that they can solve. I think with our sort of fast-paced industry, we almost don't realize we have problems until we see the ad, like the whole TikTok made me buy it mentality. So actually still targeting those outside of your regular catchment because you might inspire them to become a consumer and make them realize that they have a problem, aka they don't have your product.
I like that. All right, I'll hit you with 2 more.
Okay.
One is for anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about how to create optimal content that drives sales, or just upskill in something like video production or copywriting.
Yep.
What resource do you think is the best starting point?
I mean, really depends on what the medium is. I usually start with the good old Google search and find the opinion leaders in the market. So if it's copywriting, there's so many different leaders in this space in terms of writing copy that converts. So I'm a reader as well as a writer, so I usually just devour as much articles and blogs and books as I can on the matter.
Do you have a favorite? Someone that you go to for inspo?
I've forgotten his name now, but you know Moz. They do a blog. It's usually about SEO copy, but also just about conversions. And I've always found that they've been a player in the market for a while, and their copy is always like genuine thought leader content, where it's provocative as well as like coming up with hooks and angles that go against the status quo and sort of break the mold a little bit, which I've enjoyed. And then if it's relevant to a platform, like if I want to learn Adobe, I usually go to Adobe and look at their like resources and teach myself whether it's animation or a new tool on AI, and actually look at the library of resources they have, because they want you to use their product more. So they're often very helpful in trying to encourage people to learn those skills so you can become a consumer of their product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Go to the source. I think there's so many like educators out there, and some are great and some are not so great.
Go to Meta. Meta has a whole school for learning their ad system and best creative. So because they want you to ultimately use their platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point too. If you want to know how your meta ads can convert, look to the actual examples that they're giving you.
Yeah, the case studies are invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, Matt, well, let's leave it there. If anyone wants to chat more things, content, or pick your brain, how can they reach you?
You can reach me at matt.d@megaphone.com.au.
Oh, that felt way too.
That's my sales hook at the end there. I mean, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm sure there's a link somewhere.
There you go. That's a perfect example of like casual, relatable copy versus sales copy that just shoves stuff down your throat. So don't email him. Hit him up on LinkedIn.
Hit me up on Meta. Make it even more casual.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, mate.
I'm actually disappointed that you didn't eat any of my snacks. But
I was focusing on just like the content and the thought provoking. I'll take some with me though.
Yeah, take some home.
Snacks for the road.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.
Peace. Thank you.
That's all right.
That was fun. You've mastered the balance of like asking questions, then following up with a bit of a tidbit of yourself.
Yeah.
No awkward pauses.
That's on camera too, by the way.
Good.
They're gonna hear
Some
that.
praise for you.